Hi, everyone. Welcome to What's New in Historical Fiction. My name is Colin Mustful. I'm the founder and editor of History Through Fiction. Please be patient with me. We have a lot of people joining, so I'm going to keep trying to let people in as we proceed here with the event. I'm really excited because we have three really awesome authors with this is the first time this has happened, but none of their books are officially out yet. But they're going to be talking about those books and hopefully getting you excited about them and pre-ordering them. Just a couple small housekeeping things. I have disabled the mics. We have a lot of people tonight, so I just want to avoid any distractions there. But you can turn your cameras on or off as you would like. Please say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from. I also want to thank those that did contribute to the event tonight. This is a free event. I always want to keep these free, but I really appreciate those that did make a contribution when they signed up because that helps pay for the platform. And so I really appreciate that. One other thing is I do have a landing page with our authors' titles. I'll post that in the chat a few times throughout the evening, and you can go and check out those books, and the landing page links back to bookshop.org because we want to support sales through bookshop.org. When you buy a book through them, they actually give a portion of the sale back to an independent bookstore, and you can actually pick the bookstore that you want that to go to. Okay, without further ado, let's welcome our panelists. Madeline Martin, if you could say hello and let us know about your book, A Time of Witches. Oh, I gotta unmute you. Hold on just a second.
I was just joking that as I get older, I have new things that keep happening, and my new thing is that I have to clear my throat from time to time. And so Colin even warned me that if I mute, he has to unmute me, and I totally already had to make him do that. Thank you, Colin. I'm so sorry. So, all right, kicking this off. So A Time of Witches comes out on September 1st, and I just got the physical copy in, which is super beautiful with sprayed edges and a cute little cat on the back. So this is a dual timeline historical fiction with magical realism to it. Part of it takes place in 1645 in England during the witch trials, and the other part starts off in Savannah, Georgia, in a contemporary time period where a woman has been having this dream that she's being burned alive at the stake every single night. And this leads her to an abandoned manor in England where she discovers that her ancestor is actually the person that she has been dreaming about. And she has to find a way through history to save her ancestor or all will be lost. Dun, dun, dun. And as a fun little aside, I just got this really super cute keychain. My publisher is giving these away to anybody who pre-orders a copy of the book. So if you pre-order the book through bookstore.org, make sure that you send your receipt. There is a link on my website, which is just madelinemartin.com. And that link you can send your receipt to, and you will also get a free adorable keychain.
Love it.
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you,
Thank
Madeline.
you.
Next, we have Katherine Reay, author of The Undercover Bookshop.
Hello, I'm so glad y'all are here. Okay, so this is the Undercover Bookshop, and it launches on October 6th. So it's about a month after Madeline's. And it is about a young woman, Gemma Brown, in 1950 England, in a tiny town in the Cotswolds called Great Rollright. And she's trying to start over after a tumultuous childhood during World War II. She's a young woman. It's her first kind of coming of age moment. And she's sort of learning the social niceties, getting to know people in the town. But she begins to think that the town's best baker might be a Soviet spy. So, as an avid lover of classic British mysteries, she starts her own investigation. And where that leads her is to the Undercover Bookshop. So that's a little about the story. And like Madeline, my publisher also is doing, some pre-order lovely bonus packages, etc. And on my website, you'll find two bookstores. If you look under my events and promotions page, two independent bookstores who are offering, pretty envelopes, a card, a signed book, etc., and they'll ship them. But also, you can also choose those bookstores, Morgenstern and Foxtail, on bookshop.org. So anyway, there are lots of great ways to support independent bookstores while supporting great books. So there you go.
Wonderful. Thank you, Catherine. And Christine, you're going to have to outdo Madeline and Catherine with your pre-order gift. What is it?
I'm afraid I don't have one.
Your
I'm covered in
gratitude.
But
shame.
you've got a great book.
Yes, and a gorgeous cover.
The book is the reward, I'm afraid, for me, hopefully. My book is called The Lost Perfumes of Paris, and it's about Elodie, who is an aspiring perfumer. Her father owns a family business, but he won't let her be a fully fledged perfumer. She's stuck being an assistant to one. So her goal is to make him understand that she is a creative genius and she's going to succeed in the perfume world. And she does this by entering a contest, which is to find the essence of Paris in a perfume. And to do that, she needs the help of a very handsome man, which is always good, Marcelo, who helps her explore Paris and discover the true essence of Paris. So that's my book.
Thank you, Christine. I have lots of questions for our panelists tonight. If anyone has a question, drop them in the chat. I'm going to keep track of that as much as I can. As we get towards the end of the event, I will focus on those questions from our audience, and I can ask them throughout the event as well. So if you think of anything, put it in the chat and I'll see if I can get to that. Let's go to Madeline. There's been, there's a lot written about the witch trials, and what inspired you, though, to write a story related to the witch trials, and how did you find a unique angle into it?
So I've actually wanted to write this book for like 25 years. So remember how I mentioned how the protagonist in Savannah, Lilith, was constantly having these nightmares about being burned alive at the stake? So that actually happened to me when I was in high school. I kept having this recurring dream that I was being burned alive. I know, follow me for more sleep tips, right? So, of course, as being like a super overdramatic teenager with an overactive imagination, my gut reaction was like, okay, this was either me in a past life or it was an ancestor of mine. So I've actually wanted to write this book for years. And every time I've brought it up in the past, I've heard, oh, well, witches really don't sell. So then I started seeing on Publishers Marketplace all these witch books come up, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's time for my witch book. So I've been wanting to write this book forever. As far as choosing England for the witch trials, I feel like, I haven't read a ton of books about England. And one of the things that I love the most about historical fiction is having the opportunity to learn a new time period and a new event that takes place in history. And this particular one happened to be the largest execution of accused witches in England. There were 18 people who were hanged, 16 women and 2 men. And the catalyst for all of this was Matthew Hopkins coming into town. He actually called himself the Witchfinder General, and he was going from town to town like a celebrity, ferreting out witches. And he got paid exorbitant amounts of money for doing this as well. And one small little aside about Matthew Hopkins: when I got my edits back, my editor had highlighted the Witchfinder General, and she said, this is kind of cheesy. Can we call him something else? And I said, I agree with you. It is absolutely cheesy, but unfortunately, this is historically accurate, and this is what he called himself. So alas, we have to keep it.
Sorry, I was trying to find my unmute button.
You're fine.
Let's talk more about that, because now you've talked about that part of the story, but we also have a more contemporary timeline. Tell us about Sybil and how she's connected to that past timeline, how Lilith and Sybil are connected.
Yeah, so Sybil is the one who's in the past timeline, and she's the one who's being burned alive at the stake. And in the dream, she sees that Lilith sees that Sybil has the exact same birthmark on her arm as she does, which is a crescent moon. And so Lilith is in our contemporary timeline, and as she's having all of these dreams, she's noticing that her birthmark has kind of a tingle to it, or it warms up from time to time. And she's also noticing that there's a lot of things happening around her, where like plants are kind of stretching towards her. She's finding herself really empowered by sunlight or like at a sense of peace with the moonlight. Animals seem like they're really drawn to her. And a lot of that is basically her legacy calling to her. And she has to have the self-love enough to accept herself to be able to accept that legacy. And, you know, with the magical realism in this book, it's all very nature based. And I wanted it to be that way because honestly, I wanted this book to feel like this could happen to anybody. Like anybody who has ever felt a connection to the earth, who has ever been drawn to the moon, who has ever felt empowered by the sun, like this could be you.
Well, it's always making books relatable that really can connect the reader to the story. So I think that's really great.
Thank you.
Well, let's go to Catherine and talk about Gemma and her love of mystery novels and how you kind of have a mystery novel within a mystery novel here.
Yes. So Um, you know what I wanted to create a young woman who had a certain innocence about her. Because if you make the spy, as I have in my last few books, if you make the spy the main character, that's a very different story. And so I wanted this young woman, as I said, it's a coming of age moment, but I also wanted her to be highly intelligent, have a little deductive reasoning about her, and in the early 1950s, late 40s and 50s, the classic British mystery novel was having sort of a second golden era. Its first golden era was in the 1920s. And I think we're actually having a third one now, but maybe that's another question. But anyway, so it just was this natural segue that she loved the mysteries. It also really fit coming out of World War II. And to me, that almost felt like us coming out of COVID. In 1950, that's 5 years after World War II ended. We are now 2026, about 5 years after COVID, yet we're still looking for that normal. We're still adjusting. The mystery novel gives you a happy ending. It doesn't give you everybody riding off into the sunset and you know, great kisses, etc. But there's a certain amount of justice, and the villain is caught, and some people are given that happy ending, and she yearns for that. And in many ways, as you know, as Madeline was talking about, you going on her adventure and it could be anybody's story. I wanted Gemma's to be anybody's story in the sense that it offers anybody that hope of, hey, things will be okay. And that's kind of where I was leaning into the mystery novel and the character of Gemma herself.
What about your own reading, mystery reading? What authors do you like? What mystery novels do you enjoy?
So with the research, because the book takes place in the winter of 49 to 50, all the books for the research had to be printed, obviously, prior to November 1949. So for that, there was a lot of, you know, Agatha Christie, Josephine Tey, G.K. Chesterton, Dorothy L. Sayers, you know, the classic, the Queens of Crime, etc. However, I went through a phase where I read all of Louise Penny. I've read pretty much all of Anne Perry. I've pretty much read, well, Sherlock Holmes, that's prior to 1949, but most of Arthur Conan Doyle. I love mysteries. Huge part of I always say we're sort of defined by our teenage reading. Huge part of my teenage reading and early 20s. I could not get enough of the mystery genre.
And I read R.L. Stein constantly to Goosebumps.
Same. And I actually met him one time and he was just
Oh,
delightful. Yeah. It
I
was really cool.
love it.
He basically was like wearing like a Florida kind of like Islander shirt, and he had his hands tucked into his armpits. And like if he took a picture with you, he would just like scoot closer and take the picture and then like scoot back. He was awesome.
Well, Christine, let's talk about your main character, Elodie Limu. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Tell us about her family business and, yeah, what she is trying to accomplish, what she's trying to get involved with.
Well, Elodie is a young woman in 1950s Paris, which was pretty hard for an aspiring perfumer because men actually believed women weren't physically capable of becoming a true nose, although they don't call themselves noses. That's what other people call them. but she desperate. Her mother was a famous perfumer and tragically died when Elodie was young, and she wants to follow in her mother's footsteps. And she knows that there must be perfume notes that her mother made, because it's really interesting the way perfumers often work is that they write a little vignette or something that's just a short little impression of what they're trying to achieve with the perfume. So it could be, a sunlit room with the breeze blowing in and the scent of lavender in the air, or something very moody and evocative. And so Elodie has always wanted to find her mother's notes, and she discovers that Marcello is archiving all of her mother's papers and her grandfather's papers, who started the perfume business. So she gets very interested and finds her mother's notes, and then goes on a journey of discovering what was behind the mystery of all of these perfumes that were never made. They were the lost perfumes. And in discovering more about her mother, she discovers more about herself and her place in the world, and gets the courage to stand up to her father and really become the creative woman that she always wanted to be. So maybe my book isn't something that everybody would identify with, because she is a highly creative and talented person. But I think we all have creativity in us somewhere that's really, really dying to come forth, and perhaps we haven't had the courage to really bring it forth and really give it the time and space that it deserves. So hopefully that'll inspire some creative souls along the way.
I don't know of many novels that focus on scents, on perfumes. And I find as a writer, speaking for myself anyways, it's hard to describe smells. What was it like for you to take on that kind of a challenge? Was it natural for you, or something you kind of had to figure out how to do?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I don't have a great sense of smell. And I think probably in previous books or exercises, that's the thing that I need to work on. So it was a challenge for me. And what I did was research a lot of perfume reviewers. And the way people write about perfume is absolutely lyrical and beautiful. It's like Nigella Lawson on cooking. It's an art form in itself. And what they often do is use taste adjacent words to describe smells. So I actually had a book, and I would write down every descriptor of smell that I came across in one of these. And I had a page where they were all sort of winding around the page, and I don't even know if I referred to it, but it was just getting myself into that mindset of really, and the kind of way that a person who's a perfumer goes through the world, smelling every scent, not just the pretty ones. They are interested in everything, because even very musty or horrible smells can actually ground a very expensive perfume as one little note within many.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, because it's not something, I mean, I don't think about very often, is the intricacy behind all that.
Mm.
Oh, well, we have lots of questions coming in from the audience. Thank you so much. I'll try, I'm having a hard time reading them and listening. Also, someone posted, I just have to bring this up. Someone posted a screenshot of how to turn off the little ding sound. I didn't realize that people could hear that. I thought I was the only one as the host that could hear it. So I apologize if you could hear all the dinging when people were joining. But I did go and do what that screenshot said, and I turned it off. So you learn something new every day. Let's go back to Madeline. Some people have asked about research. Talk about some of the travel research you did for this novel.
Yeah, so I mean, I had to go to England to do research for this book. One doesn't, one must, right? And I also did go to Savannah. And it's interesting because I've been to Savannah many times before. But it's so different going somewhere for vacation enjoyment and going for research because when you go for research, it's like you're trying to absorb everything that you possibly can. So you're paying attention to what the plants are that are around you. You're paying attention to what the air smells like, to what it feels like, to the accent of the people around you, the things that they're saying. You're really just kind of taking in as all of your senses go everything around you so that you can put it back onto the page at some point and hopefully come across as a very evocative experience for the reader. As far as my trip to Bury St. Edmunds, that one was a lot of fun. I always try to hire personal tour guides because you guys, nobody wants me on a tour with them. I mean, as soon as they're like, does anybody have any questions? I'm like, oh, 1A. So I try to hire personal tour guides. And I went with the Bury St. Edmunds tour guides. And apparently, I did so many tours back to back to back that they actually wrote about me in the newspaper for taking a record number of tours with them. And they were just such a delight. And they're actually having me back when my book comes out on October 8th in England. They're doing a whole launch party for me in Bury St. Edmunds. And the curator for the museum is actually going to bring one of the witch trial pamphlets for people to see during that presentation. So that's pretty cool. But it's just, one of the things that I love about travel when I'm doing my research is that I've at this point kind of been researching for months. I usually use like 100 plus nonfiction books for every historical fiction that I write. It's not always cover to cover. Sometimes it can just be a chapter or sometimes even a paragraph, whatever meat is really relevant to what the book that I'm writing is. But when I do those trips, it's like it takes these black and white concepts and it makes them these beautiful, bright, bold colors and experiences that I'm able to put onto the page. So it's really, really helpful. And I can always find literature on site that I didn't even know that I needed. So I always travel with one bag and another bag tucked inside of it. And then when I come back home, I always have two bags. One of them is full of books.
We had a couple people ask about the board behind you. I know we've spoken about it before, but I'm sure everyone in our audience is curious. Is that related to writing?
Yeah, well, it's kind of my goals, and also it does hide the treadmill that we can't seem to find any other place to put. So here it is. This is a problem with having a big office. So this is actually, these are my goals for the year. So the top is all my goals that I want to accomplish. The middle is what's in the process of being done. And the bottom is what, excuse me, told you this like throat clearing thing. And the bottom is what has been accomplished. And my running joke is that sadly, the bottom is never as full as I want it to be.
But this answers Christine and mine's question about how you get so much done. So I feel good
Yeah.
now.
Yes, that definitely does help. It keeps me on track because my goals are always forefront.
Love it.
Thank you.
Catherine, your novel takes place during the Cold War, and you write about the Red Scourge. Can you talk about Great Britain during the Cold War and what the Red Scourge was?
So the Red Scourge or the Red Menace is what we would have called in the United States the Red Scare. So it was from the late 1940s. It reached its peak here in the United States with Joseph McCarthy and the trials in 1954. But it was that fear that communism and the Soviet Union were going to take over the world. It took on a different tone in the United Kingdom. It was no less scary, however. So, in the sense that, here it's sort of, in the US, it sort of ballooned into this very public, the trials and public fear. In the UK, it sort of simmered under the surface of everything. It was constantly in the newspaper. People were constantly aware that they were in jeopardy or could be in jeopardy. In 1949, the Soviet Union tested an atomic bomb. So if you live in London or England and you have just been through your Second World War, you've just been through the Blitz, and in 1950, you are not seeing rebuilding yet. Not a lot of rebuilding is happening. And now the Soviet Union has an atomic bomb, you're frightened. So there is this feeling that this unnamed, intangible scourge menace is out there. And so that's part of the background of the book is, that it gives it that tension. And also, the UK was full of spies too, full of Soviet spies. The Cambridge Five, recruited in the 1930s, were working full on at this point. And the first one wasn't sort of captured or found out until, let's see, 1951. And then, sort of the dominoes fell over the next few decades. But so it took on a different tone, but it's the same thing in the United States that we call the Red Scare during that time.
And can you talk about how that affected Gemma and what she thought she knew about Ursula?
Yes. Okay. So I'm so sorry. You all are getting this weird glare, but I live in Montana and the sun is setting outside my window. I'm so sorry. I'm getting like these bright spots. Anyway. Okay. So, Jem, as I said, loves mystery novels. And so she's very observant. She's always looking out for things. And she starts to see inconsistencies in the town's best baker, who also has become her mentor and a close friend. And, we've got a woman with an active imagination and we've got a spy. And I'm not really letting a cat out of the bag because I tell you in the prologue what's going on. And so that we have these two forces working together in this story. And it's really in many ways delightful because we know who Ursula is and Gemma does not. And so all of that is sort of the unveiling in the moment because Ursula was the character, true historical character who inspired the story for me. But as I said, when the spy is your main character, it's a very different novel.
Christine, I want to ask you about chemistry. How much science did you have to learn and then incorporate into this novel?
Well, I am a little bit fond of saying the only chemistry in this book is the romantic kind. To be perfectly honest, I couldn't make head nor tail of the chemistry books I read, and I thought the reader's not going to be terribly interested in that either necessarily, although we do have some, STEM fans out there. But what I'm more interested in and what I cover more in the book is the kind of experimentation that anybody can do. If you go, as I did, go along to a few perfume making classes, you do exactly what the perfumers do, and that's you have several strips of paper, and on each one you put a dot of scent essence, and you have what they call a perfume organ. So it's just rows and rows of perfume essences in bottles, and you just put one on each little piece of paper, and to put them together you make the paper into a fan and you wave it in front of your nose. And if you follow me on social media, you'll see me doing that and then laughing at myself because I look so silly. But so this is the kind of thing that I covered more in the book rather than worrying about what the chemical formulae were and all of that kind of thing that perhaps isn't so interesting to the reader.
Can you tell us more about the romantic chemistry?
Well, my model for Marcello was, or actually I think it's supposed to be Marcello, but I thought of him as Marcello. So I just, think of this romantic, dark-haired, gorgeous, half Italian, very nice looking man, and modeled him after Alain Delon. If you know your cinematic history and French cinema, you might know who that is, but look him up if you don't, because he's a very nice sight for the eyes. And Marcello was in the war. He wants to just escape from all of that and enjoy the beauty of all of the ingredients that go into perfume. He's actually a collector of rare perfumes. So this was inspired by a place called the Osmothèque, which is a library of perfume. And it's actually an archive that was developed that holds, hopefully, they're trying to collect every perfume that was ever made. And it's got some really interesting things like Napoli, the cologne Napoleon used on Elba. And if you ever read Regency romance or Georgette Hare, you might have heard of Hungary water. So that was named after, I think, a queen, if I recall correctly. So they've got the recipe for that, and all of these historical perfumes that they keep there. So in my book, because this was before the Osmotek started, my hero Marcello is the collector and archivist of these things, and that's why he's quite keen to get a hold of the information and the perfume notes that Elodie's mother had compiled.
That's really interesting. I never heard of a perfume library.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. And the romance, it just, they're working together. He's gorgeous and he's lovely. And so it just goes from there.
It wrote itself.
Yeah, it did. And when I write a romantic subplot, I always think, is he a knight errant or is he a bit of an antagonist? And in this case, Marcello helps Elodie achieve her goal. So he's really the knight errant, and they might differ on how that goal is achieved, but basically he's there to assist her because it's her story.
Well, I'm going to post a link to the landing page with our panelist books now that everyone's had a chance to hear a little bit about them. So please go check those out either now or after the event. We've got lots of questions coming in. Go ahead and keep posting those questions. I did have a lot of people seem to be interested in the writing process. One question I did have for Madeline, if you follow Madeline on Goodreads, she actually is very transparent about here's where I'm at in my writing process, and she updates her review every month or so. You wrote like 70,000 words in 32 days. I guess my question would be how?
Yeah, so first of all, I have to say that I officially need to book one of those perfume making classes because that sounds so much fun, and this is like so interesting learning about it. So I usually write my books in a month. Now, I build the month, or I spend 10 months basically building the idea for this book because I have the idea. We have to get the proposal approved by our publishers first because otherwise we can't have a book. But so at that point, that's when I start really this 10-month journey of research where I read through all of these nonfiction books. I travel on site. I really just completely immerse myself in that time period. I will try to bake food from that time period. I will listen to music from that time period. I will watch period pieces from that particular time in history. And even though they're not always historically accurate, it still just kind of helps to immerse myself in that whole world. And I love to read literature from the time period that I'm writing in as well, because it is just one of those further immersions where I'm familiar with the language and the linguistic style, the vernacular that's used back then, et cetera. And so even like with the Time of Witches, one of the things that I did is I actually subscribed to an apothecary box, which is all of these holistic home remedies. And they send you the herbs and they send you the beeswax and they send you the directions. And every single month you learn about like 5 different herbs. And it was like the coolest thing ever. So they say that if you want to know what happened in history, you read nonfiction. But if you want to know how people felt, you read historical fiction. And so for me, I feel like it's the characters that ultimately are the heartbeat and the pulse of the story and what makes a historical fiction historical fiction. And so for me, I put a lot of work into my characters. They're generally not really based off of any one person in history. They're almost sort of an amalgamation of a lot of different historical people that I've read from all of these firsthand accounts. And I have a dossier on every single character in the book, even the animals, because in A Time of Witches, there are familiars. There's even a skunk named Lord Wimbledon III. There's an adorable black cat. And if you have a bleeding heart, I will promise you that all of the animals stay safe. Nobody gets hurt or killed. So you can read and your heart is safe because I am that person. But so once I have all of the characters put together, then I go through and I put together a very comprehensive plot. And my plot generally ends up being about 25% of the length of the entire book. And then I write my book in a month. So this particular story I happened to do on my, I posted to my stories every single day what I was writing. And my goal was to finish at 70,000 words on the 32nd day of this journey. And I finished at 68.9 thousand words. So I was right on point, and then after I finished all the edits and everything, it ended up being around 83,000 words, I think is what the final copy is. And I've noticed that when I'm doing this process, if I ever get stuck in the writing, because I've basically been percolating all these ideas for like 10 months and it just pours out of me, and I'm living in this story as I'm writing it. And if I ever happen to get stuck, I've found that it's not the plot that I have to go back to, but the character.
So it sounds like you're at a point where you just can't wait to get it out.
Oh yeah, yes. It's kind of like I liken it to The Princess Bride. Yeah, I know we've all probably seen that, like where the grandfather is reading to the grandson and like the whole movie's playing out, and then the grandson asks a question and the characters like pause. And then
Hmm.
after he asks the question, it resumes and they just, continue with whatever they were doing. That's like what it feels like for me when I'm writing my book.
Gross. There's kissing in that movie.
Right?
Catherine, maybe can you? I don't expect yours to be the same writing process as Madeline. Can you tell us a little bit what yours is like?
It's not too far in the sense that I do not write 70,000 words in a month. I'm sorry, but I do what she does in that during the period that I'm researching, I get my hands on, yes, about 100 nonfiction books, read them to a certain degree, but to get the feeling of the characters, I read anything in fiction I can from that time period as well, watch movies, bake and cook. I do all of that. Very immersive. When my kids lived at home, they got so tired of Cold War movies. Um, but then I tend to write a little slower than Madeline. It takes me a little longer to get that first draft down, but it is a very immersive experience. That is so true. It does feel like after you've spent so much time, and I agree with Madeline, you simply have to go to these places. So for this book, I went to a great role write. I went to Woodstock. I walked around Blenheim Palace. Obviously went to London, spent time in London. Um, so yeah, these research trips are a must. But anyway, so you immerse yourself in all of this and then you try to pour it out. I don't plot as extensively as Madeline does. I do plot, but I then tend to fill out my outline, which I absolutely do, but I tend to fill it out as I write. So I will get a very skeleton plot, begin at the very beginning. I never write out of order. Begin at the very beginning, and then my outline, the in-depth outline, will grow as the story grows. And by outlining, I definitely keep myself on track, but yet I don't have the whole thing built before I begin. So that might be a difference in our processes.
Yeah, the story does have to kind of develop as you go and as you learn more about these characters.
Yeah, that's how it seems to me. And then if something goes awry, like Madeline said, it always goes back to the character. It never goes back to the place or the plot, but that means that I don't have that character nailed down yet. And so I have to go back and really look at her or him and generate what makes that person tick and start again.
And Christine, do you have a similar rhythm or is yours completely different?
Oh, I really wish I was like Madeline. I, I do exactly. It's been said before, but the immersion is the key for me because I can't write in a time period until I can feel confident living there. And for me, the story is actually like it's happening somewhere in the ether, and all I have to do is get out of my own way to get at it. And sometimes getting out of my own way is quite the challenge. So I do tend to procrastinate. Well, maybe I should call it immersion. That's what I do for months. And then, but actually, I think a lot of it's procrastination. And then I will write like the fury, but it probably takes me, I'd say, about 3 months to really get the draft done. don't, I've written a book in 1 month once and it nearly killed me. And I don't think I ever want to do that again. But as far as planning goes, I tend to, if it's really based on a particular historical event or something where I absolutely have a spine of a timeline that I cannot deviate from, because I'm not the kind of person who changes history very much. Sometimes there's a little bit of authorial, I take a little bit of a liberty, but not with a timeline. So if there is one, as there was in Sisters of the Resistance, I absolutely stick to that. So pretty much, other than the fictional relationship of Catherine Dior with the two main characters, everything that happened to Catherine in that story actually did really happen. And so if I've got a spine to work from, that gives me something to weave the plot around, but I don't tend to plot ahead very much. I might plot ahead, but then I forget it and I don't follow that, because I find the characters are the ones who drive the story. And for me, that happens while I'm writing. For plotters, that happens while they plot. So it's neither is wrong. It's just that I don't actually know a character until she walks on the page. I don't make lots of character notes or anything like that. As soon as she starts talking, that's when I know who she is, and her, she just comes to life for me, and that's how my weird brain works. But the history, I must say, as I'm getting to that certain age, I have to go over my notes and over them, and before I look at every chapter, because my memory is just really not what it used to be. So that's a little bit of a problem I didn't have previously. I could hold it all in my head, but sometimes I need to go back and check little details here and there.
I think that's why we have the notes, so I have nothing to apologize about there. We had a question about edits and rewrites. So you get all the words on the page. I'm sure all of you go through many revisions. Can you just speak quickly about that process? Christine, what's your revision process like?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I'm usually well down to the wire by the time I hand my book in. So I probably do one big edit and then I hand it in. And then, as usual, the process goes, my editor gives me notes, I do a rewrite. They always threaten that there may be another rewrite, but I've never actually had that. So I just I write fairly cleanly. I don't usually have to cut much or change much about the structure. It's usually more something a little bit more like a reader would find this XYZ, or something to do with something fairly superficial. We want more about the wedding. There was one book where we wanted to flesh out the wedding more, so I did that, but it wasn't like this structure doesn't work. So I'm lucky in that sense. And then it goes through a copy editor, and then it goes through a proofreader, and each time it comes back to me. And then there might be a few more queries, just small queries, and then that's it. That's galleys, where I go through and just do any last minute typos, and then that's all.
It really is quite a process. So a lot of back and forth, and a lot of people that are getting their eyes on it before readers ever do see it. Madeline, we had a question about audiobooks. Did you have a chance to listen to choose your narrator? How does it feel for you to then listen to the audiobook?
That's a great question. So, first of all, I have the most amazing narrator, Saskia Marleveld. I absolutely love her. And so when I first started writing historical fiction, because I used to write romance, I had written over 35 historical romances before I started writing historical fiction. And so when I was releasing my first historical fiction, which is The Last Bookshop in London, I got an email from my publisher that had 3 narrators to choose from, and they said, or you can you can request somebody. So I listened to them, and they were all wonderful. But I'd been listening to audiobooks for years as a single mom who was working a full-time job and writing 6 to 8 romances a year. I didn't have very much time, so I really got into listening to audiobooks, and I knew I loved Saskia. So I emailed them back and I said, these are all lovely, but do you think maybe Saskia Marleveld might consider narrating this audiobook? And I kind of almost felt like I was asking for like Jennifer Aniston to play me in a live movie or something because Saskia is so huge. And they came back like 30 minutes later saying she said yes, she would love to. And I think they heard me screaming all the way in New York. I was so excited. So I'm very fortunate that she has done all of my audiobooks since, including A Time of Witches. And as far as me listening to her do the audio, I have to be honest with you, I love Saskia, but I can't listen to my own books. I don't read my own books after they come out or anything. So remember when I mentioned that I was a type A perfectionist? And we are always our own worst critics. I tell you, I could edit a book 10 million times and still go back and be like, I should have ended the sentence on this word instead of that word. I should have rewritten that entire sentence. Why did I do this? And I just completely rip myself to shreds. So I get to a point where I just have to turn in the book and I say, this is a book as it is, and just kind of let it go. And I'm always trying to learn and improve myself. So like I actually just got my MFA in creative writing. I'm always like working with book coaches. So the goal is that every book that I publish is at that time to the best of my ability, with the understanding that the next book will hopefully be even better with what I've learned.
I never thought of that. I suppose it's kind of like an actor that decides I don't want to see myself on screen. I'll be too critical. That's interesting. And congratulations on the MFA. If anyone didn't need an MFA, it was probably you, but good for you for doing
Thank
that.
you.
That's wonderful. We did have a question about titles. Do any of you have a story related to your title? Maybe it changed multiple times. Maybe it was you knew it right away when you put the pen to paper. Catherine, anything around your title?
It's kind of boring, this story, because some books are very hard to title. This book was not, simply because I wanted it is about a bookshop. She's going towards a bookshop. I wanted it to have bookshop in the cover because it alludes to so many books, and that is the way Gemma thinks. That is the world she lives in. And I've written a bookshop book before called The Printed Letter Bookshop, and that is the language that we book lovers speak, are the world of books. So bookshop had to be in there. And really, Undercover worked very well because there is this great continuation spy theme that goes within the story, and it just lends that little bit, sort of a tongue-in-cheek about what's truly going on. So this book was easy to title. Others are so difficult, but I got away really easy on this one.
That's
We
good.
workshop our titles sometimes, don't we? As a group, we all
Yes,
say,
we
"Oh, I'm
do.
gonna get a title for this. Here's the
Help,
blurb. Help, help."
Yeah, so a little bit of context. We all actually are with the same agent. We're with Kevin Lyon, and so we call ourselves the Lionesses, and we have there's I think about 25 of us, and we have a private Facebook group. And anytime that any one of us has a title issue or something, we'll all kind of workshop it together. We have a whole separate section for hideous covers that we'll like that we share that nobody else gets to see. It's just
Nope.
kind of a
They're
This
not
is an
covers we actually
amazing.
got, are they, Madeline?
yes, exactly.
They're
Yeah,
the
and we
feature.
actually
Amazing
we
group.
even do and we do an annual retreat once a year too. So we'll all meet up once a year in a really different location, and it's just lovely.
It really is.
Yeah, we have such a great group of authors.
That's fantastic. A lot of inside jokes then among you.
Oh yeah.
Well, and the reason the three of you are together is because you also have the same publicist, Angela.
Yes.
Can you
Yes,
speak
Angela's
to what
fantastic.
it's like working together in that respect?
Well, the thing is, we don't work together, but we all work with her, which is wonderful because, that's how we got to be here. But I think, speaking for the three of us, we absolutely love working with her. And one of the reasons is, discoverability is hard these days. There's so many great books out, and with self-publishing, there's so many avenues for great books to come out. And so Angela has a very unique ability of taking your work and finding the proper places for readers for your book to find you. And that's a true gift, and we all love working with her. So there's a shout out to Angela.
Yeah, she's wonderful. And she just sent me some really beautiful flowers because she knows that I'm going to be kicking off an 11-week book tour starting on Monday.
I'm doing that too, and it's far too long.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. So, and
Ooh,
people, but I love it because we get to meet so many people like all over America and
true.
Canada and
And you
England.
get to go to
So,
England.
yes, yeah, and also we're doing one in Whistler too. But yeah, so it's exciting. So make sure that you check out our websites for our upcoming book launches because we are going to so many places and we
You're
love to
going to
get to meet
so
all of
many
you.
places.
Yes,
So many
so I think
places.
we all probably have events pages on our websites. And again, mine's madelinemartin.com.
KatherineReay.com.
And mine's Christine-Wells.com.
So you
I'm
can find all
curious.
of our information there for book tours.
I know Christine is in Australia. I don't think you're planning on coming to the US for your tour, but for any one of you, do you have both virtual and in-person events? Are they mostly in person? Where like Christine, for instance, will you have some more virtual events as your book comes out?
Yes, there should be a few, and also in person as well. I'm doing some events around in Australia, so that Aussies look out for that one.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well,
And
we
for me,
have,
this is my only virtual event. So,
okay.
and then all of the other 11 weeks of my book tour is just, I'm going to Portland. I'm doing Delaware. I'm starting off in Pennsylvania. I am like just all over the place. I'm doing a bunch in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama. Look me up.
Yes, please look us up.
Yes.
Well, we have just a few minutes left. We have Susan's asking about the costs of all this. I mean, I know budgets are tight. How much are you investing yourself in some of these events? How much is it provided for you? Madeline, can you speak to that just a little bit?
I think everybody kind of has some things that are a little bit different. Um, it is a little bit hard to answer just because I don't know what everybody else gets, and it's hard to sometimes share that information. But I will say that for me, the biggest cost, honestly, is generally just time. It's time away from my family and from my home. And so I know that I recently, everyone's talked about, like, I've been, oh, Madeline, you're doing all these trips and you're everywhere. Like I just went to Sri Lanka to go visit my brother's family, and then the Maldives are like an hour and a half away. So I went to the Maldives and I brought my youngest with me. And then my husband and I went to Nashville for a little weekend getaway. And these are the little things that I like to do before I leave for a really long period of time. Because basically, for the next 2 months, they're going to see me in little pockets of time, and like that's about it. So, yeah. So the biggest thing really is the cost of time. But honestly, it really is just so rewarding getting to meet so many lovely booksellers and to meet so many wonderful readers.
It's Angela Melamud. Someone asked,
Yes.
and my
Yes.
mic's in the way, I couldn't type in there. Uh, Someone did ask about your agent's name too, so if one of you could just type the agent's name in there as
I can
well.
do that.
Yeah.
Um, so we just have a few minutes here. I did maybe just want to ask briefly. I know all of you are so productive. What are you working on next? If you can just give us a little insight into what's coming up next, if you have something. Catherine's looks like maybe, I don't know.
Well,
Catherine, what are you working on?
it's so different for me. It's a little bit of a literary mystery, but it has a touch of magical realism, and I've never written that before. Just a tiny touch, and I'm so excited about it. But again, for me, it's diving into the world of books. That is my happy place, and that's where I'm diving in again. But there's this thread of magical realism, which is making it so fun and a new creative experience. I've spent my last 4 or 5 books in the Cold War with spies who are fascinating and forgers of Picasso's, but this is new and different, and I'm really excited about it. So there you go.
Yeah, that's exciting. Christine, what are you working on?
I'm switching between two books at the moment. One's a real departure. It's a contemporary, a little bit in the vein of Leon Moriarty, and another one is historical, which I can't say too much about right now, but I'm enjoying a bit of a change of pace with the contemporary one. It's very different to write, so we'll see how that goes.
And
And
Madeline, how about you?
I just turned mine in. So mine is completely written. It's all done. It takes place in the moors, like if you imagine like Wuthering Heights. It is a women's reformation home in the Victorian time period. If you read The Secret Book Society and you loved it, you will be seeing Lady Duxbury in this book make an appearance. I'm calling it The Secret Garden Meets a Little Princess, but for grown-ups. So my tagline for this particular book, because it does also have magical realism, because once you start, you can't stop. And so my tagline for this is basically, these are the women that history wants you to forget. These are the magical stories that record their history. And this is the adult fairy tale you did not know you needed. So it's called The Forgotten Pages. And of course, I already have a Goodreads bio for it. So if you do want to follow along in my publishing journey with this particular book, just add The Forgotten Pages to your want to read, and you can follow on the journey with me.
Okay, so I'm now gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to follow the Undercover Bookshop too, and I'm gonna update it. That is so fun. I sometimes do sporadically, but I love that you are there. I like
It's
that is
fun,
fabulous, Madeline.
yeah. And
So
people love to
I'm
follow
gonna
along too.
copy.
It's like you have more people on the journey. It's just
Yeah,
it's
I
so much
love
better than
that.
being by yourself.
Yes, it is.
Well, I want to thank our panelists. This has been a wonderful discussion, even though we didn't get too far into your books. And I want to thank
Just
everyone.
teasers.
Yeah, thank everyone for attending. Yes, all of these authors or books are yet to come out, so pre-order them now. You'll get them soon. Check out their websites for their events. They have many more events coming up. And I just want to thank everyone again for attending. This has been a wonderful event. I always wrap these up by asking why historical fiction. You guys spend so much time researching, and then you turn that research into a story. You talked about it already, how important the characters become. So why turn history into a story? What's the value there? Christine, if you could start us off.
For me, it's the endless fascination of people and the amazing people you uncover when you research into any period of history.
And Catherine, how about you? You
For
researching all this
me,
time with the Cold War?
to be honest, for me, it's what it tells us about our present. I feel that by understanding history, we understand our own lives better, our own world better. Um, and it creates a point of connection, a point of reassurance in many ways, but also maybe a clarion call can be all of those things. But I do feel that when we don't forget history, we won't repeat history necessarily, or we'll take the best of it and we'll repeat that. So anyway, it's how it informs the present journey for me.
Definitely very important. And Madeline, how about you?
For me, I think I really love to learn about normal everyday people in history, and I especially love to write women's stories. I really love how there are women who don't think that they have this strength inside of them, but when they are encounter an extraordinary situation, they're able to show up and they bring this strength out that they didn't even know that they had. And I just think that's such an incredible thing. And so I actually hope that when women read my books, that they feel empowered, that they can find that strength inside of themselves. And I also really wanted to just add to Colin, thank you so much for inviting us tonight and for all of these wonderful questions that you came up with. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you
Yes,
so
and
much,
thank you
Colin.
to everyone who came along as well. Thanks, Colin.
Yes, thank you guys
Thank
so
you.
much for coming this evening. We truly
Thank you
appreciate
all.
you.
Yeah, thanks again, everyone. I really admire what you guys do, everything that goes into it. You talked about that process a little bit, but I know how much you put into it and how important it is. So thank you so much for sharing those stories and continuing your work. And thanks again, everyone, for attending. Please have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you are.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.